Welcome to another exciting episode of the Epic Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm Brad Sugars, the Chairman and CEO of ActionCOACH, and today we're diving into the minds of some incredible business leaders, uncovering their real stories, strategies, and the secrets behind their victories. It's not just about success, it's about the journey, the hurdles, and turning challenges into opportunities. So let's jump right into it.
Welcome to the Epic Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm joined today by Tim Limmer from Brisbane, Australia. Tim is the chairperson of the Frederick Marsden Youth Centre Board. He's been involved with the Frederick Marsden Youth Centre since 2007. He oversees a number of programs. Recently, he's overseeing a disability support service called Inclusive Disability Assist that's growing exponentially. Hi, Tim, and welcome to the Epic Entrepreneur Podcast.
Thanks very much, Caitlin. Really appreciate the opportunity.
So let's dive straight in. Could you share the top 3 things that you've done that you think have made you successful in business? Maybe something that others who want to follow in your footsteps might like to hear.
3 things. That's a tricky question. I reckon for us in this particular venture, getting extremely clear on our why and our who. It wasn't so much a matter of what we were going to do. It was who were we trying to reach and why were we trying to do it. And for a bit of context to that, I sit on the board of the not-for-profit, and most of our existence has been about really not making money and scraping by. And so why were we going to do something again? And who were we going to reach really mattered to us. So those are 2 things. I'm sure I'll get into a bit more about that later. We got really clear on the principles of business that we wanted to inject in this disability support service that we started, and being super clear, sort of paved the way for, I say, less roadblocks, but it doesn't mean there weren't any. And I think number 3, we kind of dovetails in, maybe it's cheating, but with the principles of business, we were robustly focused on the types of leaders that we wanted for that organizational branch. And, if the leaders didn't quite match that, we were willing to discuss that and part ways if necessary.
Wonderful answer. Yeah. So being really clear on your why, your who, particularly those business leaders who you wanted to work with. Can you talk at all about the process that you went through to get focused in on your why? That's something that I know is something a lot of business owners wrestle with, is that kind of what are we doing here? What is the purpose?
Oh yeah, what a wonderful period of my life. It really was. Being a board of directors, we had to find harmony, unity, synergy from, I think at that time it was 5 individuals from very different walks of life. We had a center point though. We had a very clear beginning point that we're a Christian not-for-profit. We've been in existence since 1929, so there's been a relay torch passed from, I guess, generation to generation. So we had a pretty clear starting point on a whole bunch of things that were acceptable and not acceptable in our opinion, our moral compass. However, really landing on that, it was allowing the board to have sufficient robust and wide-ranging discussions, debates, and maybe even a couple of strong words here and there to really flesh out the true nature of where we believed we stood currently. And then for this particular venture, again, really why we were pushing the button on this. I mean, we could choose anything. We could supply ice to Eskimos if we so choose in Australia, a bit odd, but we could choose any direction. So why this one? And with enough discussion, with a time limit, we were able to get just super clear on that particular process. And I think after we launched it, it was a couple of years of floundering in a new area of business. And that's when we brought on the amazing Bill Stack from ActionCOACH. And he really helped us streamline some of those processes to better instill them in the business after we had already sort of become clear on what we wanted to do, who we wanted to reach. I think, it was a bit of a slow process being a board and a democratic process. However, it gave us such a solid foundation stone that every discussion after that became so much easier.
Yeah, it sounds like having so many decision makers involved forced you to have those difficult conversations and do the heavy lifting up front. Yeah, we're going to get a little bit more into Bill and Action Coach, but before we do that, maybe take us back to the beginning. Can you talk a little bit about what made you decide to get involved and why this particular group?
Another great question. I've always had a fascination in bettering myself. I come from a large family. I'm one of 11 children. Mum and Dad did a tremendous job supporting us and I guess providing us with the skill set. I think the way Mum put it was instilling in us a love to learn. And so nothing became a challenge. If you find something you love, you'll just go and learn about it. So with those tools in my back pocket, I tried a few things. Privately in business and investments and whatnot. Started a family of my own, settled down in sunny Brisbane, Queensland, and then literally my parents got talking to their next door neighbour about this organisation, the Frederick Marsden Youth Centre, and what it was currently doing, what it had done. Just, when you know something, you just know in the essence of your being that I just knew there was something there that I could contribute with. And I actually just came on board to help out with some gardening. It's a huge property. I don't know what your terminologies are over there, but we sort of have governance over 10 odd hectares of land, which is about 10,000 acres, I think, or 10,000, acres. So I just got very excited the more I heard about this organisation and saw that they didn't just posture themselves in the public domain as something that they weren't. They really were what they say they were. And a lot of the philanthropic work they did was done very quietly, very humbly. And that resonated with me. We should give because it's right, not for the spotlight. So that really kindled something in me. And then I joined the board soon after the birth of my first child. That's how I remember the date so well, 7. And just year to year, the motivation and excitement has not waned.
That sounds like an incredible story. Starting out as a gardener, you hear a lot of people metaphorically coming in from the ground up, but that's maybe the most literal interpretation I've heard.
It's a good point.
So in all that time that you've been involved with the organization and being involved in the leadership of the organization particularly, what would you say has been the biggest challenge? And maybe tell us a little bit about how you overcame that.
The biggest challenge? Well, there have been a few. I would say probably in my time, and it's going to become very cliche one day, but the COVID situation really brought a challenge that we were not anywhere near prepared for. At that particular time, we were running a number of other programs, a camp and conference centre, which could house up to 100 people and feed them, and they could do all the activities on site. We have a high ropes confidence course, quite a major infrastructure on a portion of the land. And both of those income streams basically died overnight as various lockdowns and all of that came into effect and bookings dried up. And we sort of modeled out it was potentially going to be 3 to 5 years for an adequate recovery to be able to pay our bills again through those income streams. And like I maybe alluded to at the start, we were genuine not-for-profit that for a long time got by, just on the smallest of savings because we didn't have any debt. We didn't have any loans. We just had what we had and knew that our programs worked. So why keep an exponential amount of money in the bank? So that COVID scenario really forced some changes on us. We had to make a bunch of staff redundant. It wasn't a very enjoyable period, to say the least. However, the way the board came together through that, again, focusing on why we're here, is just dissolving ourselves into insolvency by being well-meaning philanthropists and trying to help everyone at the cost of our own organization. Is that the way to go? We didn't feel it was ultimately. So I guess getting over that hurdle and hoop was, I would say, the biggest challenge I personally have felt within myself. And we did. I'm happy to report we did overcome that. And we came out the other end stronger internally and externally as well, I personally believe.
I know that period of time certainly had a lot of challenges for a lot of people, a lot of business leaders. So I'm sure people are nodding along to what you're saying. Interesting to hear you describe it as an internal struggle, along with the logistical and operational struggle. Were there any what could I say? Any sort of mantras or themes that you came back to that helped you kind of with that more internal journey through that period?
On the spot, not that I can recall initially, other than sort of the foundation stones of why the overarching organisation was formed by Frederick Marsden back in the early 1900s. Pretty firm foundations. He specifically bought the property to benefit youth, young people and their families in the community. Way back then, he was very entrepreneurial himself. So we were able to come back to that. That's our pivotal point. That's our why again, to assist where we can, youth, young people and families. And so with that, seeing how much extra need there was, particularly during that time, how do you tuck tail and run? We didn't publicly have those conversations. I am now, of course. Sorry, everyone. We fleshed out every situation we could possibly think of. And ultimately, we did settle on a new tagline. It was, I believe, I haven't done a huge amount of research on it, but I believe it was coined by a nun long time ago, where she coined the phrase, "No margin, no mission." And she, in her life, went on to, I believe, become the president of an organization which managed 80 hospitals in a particular part of the world. Her name is not coming to me just at the moment on the spot, sorry, but, you can't operate 80 philanthropic hospitals without some degree of business-minded income stream. You can still be totally not-for-profit, and that is absolutely who we've focused on maintaining being, but without a sufficient margin to overcome these obstacles, these challenges, it doesn't make for a very pleasant ride, not just for us internally, but for those that we employ, for those that we assist, even just having to close a campsite, a place that didn't really directly, I guess, seek to improve the lives of everyone in a substantial way, but provide a safe and self-sufficient arena for groups, businesses to come for team building exercises, etc. Feeling that so innately in ourselves that we have to maintain a sufficient margin to be able to fulfill our mission. And that then led on to, we think it's time to have a closer look at our mission statement again, our vision statement, and really have a holistic look. And it was about this time we actually got introduced to ActionCOACH. So it was a really good timing to do that efficiently across a very well-meaning board. Now we can talk some meetings away, I'm not going to lie. So it was really good to focus us on that particular issue in the start. No margin, no mission.
Can't give away what you don't have. Yeah.
Correct.
Do you want to touch on any other areas where maybe you personally had to grow or that you had to learn to lead to the success that you're having today? Kind of getting maybe through that very difficult period. It sounds like you've had since then some exponential growth. So has that continued to challenge you to grow?
Yes is the simple answer. We made a bit of a rod for our own backs in a good way, in that we didn't really predict how fast and how popular our disability services would be and would grow. So the board ended up having to, and we still are in some degree, actually fulfilling the role of a CEO whilst only meeting once a month to provide management and governance oversight to all of our various programs. And that was not a sustainable model. Thankfully, we recognized that early. We didn't have a solution early, but we were at least cognizant of it to be able to be kinder on ourselves, be kinder on each other in meetings when some stressors maybe rose a little higher than every day-to-day situation. And pivot toward that future management structure, which we're still currently in, to be honest. The board still carries a huge load in the management role of the organization as well as the governance role. So I guess personal growth within that, I've always been quite a good time manager, but a lot of the time management has just been contained in the old noggin. And for those that aren't familiar with that vernacular, that's my head. Why write anything down when you have such an excellent memory? Well, there came a time I needed to start writing some stuff down. And the best thing I ever started doing, because it solidified what I thought was a good discipline and memory into a much, much more efficient and peaceful one, I suspect for my family also, that I wasn't so busy in my mind. I was busy on paper, but once it was on the paper, I had no concern that I would retain the information, because even if I forgot it, I could just remember it. So, as I say it out loud, it seems so simplistic, but I wasn't aware of it prior, and it's made a huge difference to be a much better time manager. My own, my family life, my personal life, I have quite a few hobbies, probably too many hobbies to be fair. And so to fit everything in, they all need their own notebook so that I can be the best version of myself for each sort of ornament on the tree that I choose to be on any given day. It's funny the things that come out of your mouth as you just
doesn't
spitball.
make it any less powerful.
Yeah.
There's a great quote that I always come back to. I think it might be a David Allen one. He says, our minds are made for having ideas, not for holding them.
Yes,
I really like that.
Where was that 20 years ago for me?
Yeah.
No, that's good. I like that.
Yeah, I like that one too. Let's take a look at business coaching for a minute. You mentioned Coach Bill. What made you decide to get a coach, and what's it done for you, for your organization and your program?
Well, old Bill, it came through a chap who was helping out our organization, such a wonderful human being who I'm not entirely sure how he came to be attached with us. I know he contracted in for some online work, some marketing. Dear old Derek. And it morphed into so much more. And the heart of gold this man possessed, I think generally in life, but it became a part of who we were. He could see the transition we were facing through COVID was not an easy one. I had some very open discussions with him in his position and around where we were orienting and what it may even mean for his future employment with us. And he just suggested, no strings attached, a bit of an introduction to William Stack. Well, I'm not going to lie, we were hesitant from the get-go. Again, it's that mindset of a not-for-profit to put the money just into programs or just into the community. And thankfully, we had discovered this new mantra a little, and we turned it over for a few months internally and realized what harm can come from an introduction, what harm can come from a no strings attached chat. And, it wasn't cheap. I'm not going to lie. For us, it was not cheap. However, my particular position on it was we personally pay for some excellent legal advice, top notch in our state. We pay for quality equipment. We pay for quality staff. Why would we not consider paying for some quality external advice? And in this form, business coaching. In my first discussion with Bill, there's a lot of terminology that kind of in this organization rubbed me up the wrong way. And I'll explain that in a minute. But I really had a strong affinity with externally from this organization as entrepreneur, business-minded individual. And I could see there was danger if we couldn't bridge that terminology gap. And I'm not by any means saying this is all that Action Coach is about, but when we are not just about making money, we're not just about growing, franchising, any of that sort of stuff. So I wanted to be very clear from the get-go. And Bill got it. I was so impressed with how quickly he got it. We were able to basically rewrite a dictionary or thesaurus of terminology that we could tweak, where instead of using the term profit, we would use margin. Instead of maybe, business, we would use project, or depending on what the term was. So we went about this little discussion and preliminary journey, kind of, the writing was on the wall. We had to give it a go. So we signed up for an initial 6 months, if I remember rightly. And that was us showing faith in ourselves, in ActionCOACH, in Bill, and really putting our money where our mouth was, that we weren't just paying lip service to improve our attention to detail in delivering our why and our what. That then introduced how were we going to do it. Well, we knew we were in for some education, and that can be a bit difficult as we get a bit older and wiser. We get comfortable with our habits. And Bill tested those in a way that we probably weren't expecting, but in such a amenable way, and I think he understood where we were and who we were as a not-for-profit, that money wasn't the driving force. If we didn't do it right, it didn't have a right to exist under our umbrella. So that's how we got involved. And then we stuck together for, I think it was 3 years, and we have just taken a short pause on those services at the moment, really just to test, are we learning? Are we going to fall into some pitfalls at the moment? Naturally, Bill and I, we're messaging each other on the regular. He's making wonderful introductions still. Hosted him recently on a new venture, some Twilight Markets or a Twilight Festival. We hosted on site here and had over 4,000 people through the gate, and he graciously came, and I'm waiting for the debrief and the corrections on it, but I think he had a great time and we fed him well. I know that was a little long-winded. I apologize in retrospect, but that was the beginnings. And I thought it was probably relevant that I was honest about some of our hesitancy. But then once we got into it, it was night and day, and helped us be much more efficient and focused in rewriting our vision, mission, creating a new charter for our organization, and setting ourselves up for maximum possible success.
I really appreciate your honesty about the hesitations that you had. I think they're certainly not unique to you. So it's really interesting to hear the story of what you assumed, what shifts you made within the terminology, and how that worked out. Yeah, great answer.
Thanks.
You shared a lot of insight already about the importance of being clear on your why, about the importance of having those difficult conversations when you're working with a board, some time management tips, talking about Bill pushing you out of your comfort zone a little bit. Is there any other kind of top piece of advice that you'd love to pass on to an entrepreneur or somebody looking to follow you into the nonprofit world?
One singular piece of advice is how I'm quarantined. Look, I think for me, blending the two, entrepreneurship and not-for-profit don't have to be too dissimilar, so long as you're very, very clear on why you're doing something. And if you are passionate about why you're doing it, that's the beginnings. Passion alone won't take you there, of course, but if you can believe in it, motivation will never be an issue. Energy, or finding the energy, will seldom be a problem. And I probably presently believe that's the single most important thing, is certainly one of the biggest things I'm telling my kids at the moment. If you love something, it's not a struggle. And for us at the Frederick Marsden Youth Centre, our why is very clear cut. Unfortunately, it has never been greater in the community. It's growing in its various different forms, and we can assist people through a portion of their struggles, and that why is motivation enough to ensure we succeed and exist. So be passionate, but be true to your mission, true to your vision. Don't compromise the moral standing of your business or your not-for-profit. Don't compromise that ever.
Tim, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your advice and your wisdom with the podcast listeners. Appreciate it.
Really appreciate the opportunity to have a chat. Hopefully someone listens to I know my kids will, and that's a great comfort.
I hope they enjoy it. My kids won't be listening because they're too young. Maybe they should be. Maybe I'll try and get them hooked on it.
Yeah, it's never too early to have a go.
Never too early. Thanks, Tim. Take care.
And that's a wrap for today's epic conversation here on Epic Entrepreneurs. Huge thanks to our amazing guest for their pouring their heart into sharing their journey. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe button, leave a review, share it, or hit that bell. But until next time, let's make sure you keep dreaming, take massive action, and stay epic.